Good evening. Good evening. As you will wait, as others join us, just greet and say good evening so that we can see you are there. And we'll start in no time. In the meantime, just enjoy the music at the background. It's St. Paul Headquarters, honoring the Cabinet Version 2016. Enjoy. Good evening. Good evening. Just share in the meantime, just share with other people as we wait to start. Just share the link with other people. Thank you for joining in.
I think I'm in now.
Of course, you are in, bro. People can hear you. It's okay. Please set up your camera properly, Prophet, and we'll start in no time. Thank you very much for joining us. I think let's open with a prayer as usual and call upon God to be with us as we are about to teach and as we are about to have a panel discussion. And that when we answer this question, we are indeed honoring Him and thanking Him like we always do. Can we please hold our hands and then pray before we start. And let's see Tanda's. Dear Lord, thank you very much this evening again for allowing the chance and for giving us the opportunity to discuss matters that are close to our hearts, to discuss matters in all this effort to educate your people, to uplift and empower your people, dear Lord. We thank you. We cannot do anything without you. In everything we do, invite you, invite your power and your wisdom, dear Lord, that you are with us and the people that we are teaching or we're enlightening, dear Lord. Let it be you who's the ultimate educator, dear Lord. We pray and we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Siabonga, Siabonga. Thank you, family. And please share the link as you are coming in to those that so to other people so that they can appreciate. Before I introduce my panel that I have today, there they are. You can see them as well. I need to send an apology as well for the chief who was on the poster that we are unable to have him join us. He was with us during the day, so he rushed off. He had some emergency. And thank you, Prof, for coming and joining us in such a short space of time to help us in this matter. So today, let me bring down the music so that we don't get to compete with the music. Those brass bands, Anyway, thank you. We decided, as the team is in discussion to talk about this headship. It has been a question, rather, a topic that has been in our mind and in our hearts. I'm saying that we have done so much work, and we also are now asking certain questions. We usually say that it is better that kids ask questions at home, that they don't get the wrong information outside. So therefore, they must ask for any thing that is confusing or anything that is not so clear. They must ask at home so that they don't get to pick up wrong things that are being said outside. But there's also a thin line of those people that says you cannot question God a lot. In the same breath, I don't think there's a word questioning a lot. It's questioning to be enlightened. And it's about a place where you are questioning. Because we can't say to kids that you are questioning a lot while they want the light. What you call a lot, they're going to question outside, and then they're going to get the wrong information. So it will at some point look like we're questioning certain things. Allow us to question certain things to understand where they come from. I've got a panel, high-level panel of academics, panel of traditionalists, and a panel of Christians, pastors, people who have studied in that regard. So I'm going to take this opportunity to ask questions that I have, even if the questions might sound a bit like they shouldn't be coming from a pastor / a doctor or whatever, but the questions I'm asking is that so that I can be able to capture all the questions from all the horizons, from anybody, so that the questions don't sound smart because of the person asking them, but the questions become necessary, and the smartness, we leave it for later. So I'm declaring that some of the questions, when I ask them, you would feel that it shouldn't be a doctor asking this question or anything. I'm not asking on my behalf. I'm asking to educate everyone and anyone who's involved. So as I thank you, I want us to start with Prof. Because I know your time is limited, I want to ask you a few things. Today we are discussing is the headship of a man. Is a man the head? Is it something that is a myth, or it's something that is supposed to be? It's something that has to be there. That's the question that we are asking. So the man being the head, is it a myth or what? Or it's supposed to be? And if it's like that, where does it come from? Before you answer this question, Prof, I'd like you to briefly introduce yourself and tell us the work that you do, where we can find you, and what you do, so that we don't overlook the good stuff that you do and only talk about what interests us. So please introduce yourself, Prof, and then answer this question after introducing yourself. Over to you.
Thank you very much for inviting me. As you have alluded to, that it was a short notice and I've never been to this platform before. So that's why it took me a while to get into the platform. But anyway, I'm Professor Sihaugele Ngubane. I'm the Professor of African Languages and Cultures here at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. In response to your question, men are heads. It's a fact. I know that this fact is challenged, but we can engage this discourse this evening just in response of the question. A man and a woman are all men. They are all human beings. The only difference between a man and a woman is that a man, there is a man with a womb, and that man with a womb is called a woman, and a man without a womb. So obviously, if I start it like that, it means we are all human beings, but we are differently orientated. So it dictates that the children are brought up in a different manner. Uh, a boy is trained to be strong right from birth, is exposed to risks, and is exposed to many social pressures, unlike a woman. So this fact begins from the upbringing. And the upbringing is a continuation of the people who lived before us. So we inherit this indigenous knowledge from people who lived before us. So they transfer this information through word of mouth, and that's how it originates. That a man is viewed as a provider. That's why a woman will leave her own parents and stay with a man, because a man is meant to provide for a woman. I just want to take it further to say that the rites of passage for men and women are different. That is because of the orientation that comes from our history and our past, that a man has got to undergo circumcision and initiation. And at the initiation school, that's when they are trained that you are a man and you should behave like one. And we know that now that we have rights and we have feminists challenging manhood and headship of men, but this thing is coming from our forefathers. And now the environment has changed. We know that culture evolves. But in this case, a man is trained to lead. A man is trained to be a provider. And that's why at the initiation school, they are taught how to behave as a man. So a man will carry different qualities and characteristics from a woman. So this thing emanates from that upbringing. So that is why I say it is a fact, to respond to a question, because even when you follow the Christian uh, ideology in the New Testament, it is stipulated that a man is the head. So this is some of the facts that I can put across right now. I know that I never had a chance to think. To have time to think about the question, but I think this is where it comes from.
Okay, yeah. You see, I want to continue with you so long because you've touched on the two questions that in the briefing earlier we're talking about, and I like the fact that you saying that you never really had a lot of chance, but I like how you're going about it. So now we're saying that this is started from the ones who lived before us. One, it also was promoted in an initiation school, and you're in an academia in this studies as well as a professor, and I like that part. So now, as we now look at school, I'm going to put two doubts in the statement of coming from a initiation school and coming from the ones that taught us before. When you teach something from generation to generation, you can agree that the alterations happen as the time are coming up. And people are getting to have more and more choices, or you call them rights, if you want to. People get to have more and more choices in terms of what they do. So now, to the people who taught us this thing, when a man now chooses that he's not going to be the head or a dictatorship or patriarchal, as we were taught, how is that being portrayed? You portray it as a failure as a man to what they taught you in initiation school. Another question and follow up on that is that at initiation school is not everyone who passes at school. Some do fail. So when you fail to have those characteristics at initiation school, do you now disowned as an unfit man? Because certain things that are taught in initiation school, we see them, people don't do them as they're supposed to, they do the opposite. Do we now disown them? I want to know from where it comes from. How do you then behave when something like that happens? Over to you.
Yeah, this is quite a complex question because, as I said earlier, this is about upbringing. Now you are bringing the issue of choice and choosing. You don't choose to be a man. You are created by God to be a man. So it's not by choice, it is by creation and by destiny. And we also have what we call stereotypes. You know, maybe you've heard some comments that a man does not do this, a man does not do that and that and that. This is how you are told, like they usually say a man does not cry.
Yeah.
And you grow up knowing that you are not expected in a society to be seen crying. And yet you still go through pains and you become emotional. And the thing is, when they say a man do not cry, they mean to say a man does not cry in public. So you still cry, but not in public. So those things, and they will say a man will eat a special type of meat. There is meat, portions of meat that a man eats. Even when you are at your home, you don't eat any part of chicken, but they are special. So those things, they convey a message that you must be seen as a man even when you choose not to be a man, because you don't have a choice to be a man or not to be a man. And also, just to extend this thought is that when you want to be a head, you must start a family. And if you don't want to be a head of a family, you don't start a family. You stay at home. And people will start talking that you are not a real man because a real man does this and that and that. But the choice of being a head is when you want to start a family, and when you want to remain a boy forever, then it's your choice. You are free to do that.
Okay, this is getting interesting, Prof. I want to bring somebody in and ask the same question, and which is where this is I like this part. So let's now bring this to Undabezita, Chief Mahlangu. Chief Mahlangu, I'm going to start with you as well, simply because Prof is discussing things that are also intertwined with what you're doing as well, what you stand for. And there's a professor in this academic institution in KZN. He has asked this question, and I want you to answer the same question as well, because you also had time to think about it. So the practice of a man being the head, this idea or this practice of men supposed to be the head, where does it come from? And what does it mean? Over to you.
Ngiyathokoza. Angazi-ke ukuthi mhlambe
Please introduce yourself before you talk to them so that they know where you come from and everything, so that we don't minimize or downplay your role. Introduce yourself, David.
Okay, ngiyathokoza. Ngaphambi kokuthi ngizazise ngiba ukubuza ukuthi ngikhuluma ngesiNgisi namkhana ngibetha ngesikhethu ngesindebele.
Besela ukuthi ukhulume ngesiNgisi ngoba isiNdebele asikumuntu nomunye wazwe isizindebele. So ngesilungu but isiLungu we can, you know, some English nice. Yeah, it is depending on folklore, but there is still isiLungu.
Okay, ngiyathokoza. Ngizosizama ngoba thina sikhethu sesajwayele ukukhuluma isiNdebele. My name is Nsizwa Mahlangu. Greetings, everyone, and thank you for welcoming me in to this program. My name is Inkosi Nsizwa Mahlangu. I am a traditional leader at Wheatbank, Emalahleni, Mpumalanga. I am the chairperson of all Amakhosi in the urban areas under the Nzunza Kingdom, under King Mapogo the Third. I'm also the provincial organizer of the Congress of Traditional Leaders of South Africa, Contralesa. I then have professionally, I have studied law, but then I've been a chief from 2006 after my father passed away, and until now. So I've been a chief for about 15 years. Thank you.
Thank you. The question now, Chief. Chief.
Repeat the question for me.
The question is that where does this idea of anything by what
Okay, thank you, sir. The practice of the man being a head, it's natural. It was naturally designed like that. There is things that when you come into earth and you learn the ways of life and the ways of living, you see that this is how things were designed. After it gets too sunny, it's gonna evaporate and it might rain in the evening. It's the way of life. It's the way universe has been designed.
Okay. What does it mean?
Okay, so the man being the head of the family, it means now that the man becomes the protector of the family.
Yeah.
In the olden days, the man was able to become a provider of the family alone and expected to become a provider, a co-provider of the family. But nowadays, with life being so expensive and the cost of living being so expensive, it's becoming difficult. Some of the things, because of the modern life that we are living now, they become adjusted. But with adjusting the ways of living, it does not then subtract the man being the provider, the protector, the leader of the family. A man is supposed to be the one that is supposed to continue the surname of that clan or of people. So if you know that in the family a boy was born, there's great celebrations because it means that the surname will continue. And it means there's another leader that would take the spear forward and move forward from where the elders have left it. The person that will teach the nation, the culture of that clan, of how things must be done. That is the role of the man in a family. So that's what it means, basically.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me invite you to ask questions as you are listening so that we can project the questions and ask my high-level panelists. We started with Prof. He said the same thing. Man, you don't choose. You are born a man. It's not a choice. And you are the provider, the protector of the family, and all those things that we hear all the time. The chief also alluded in the same way that the professor has said. Now, I want to go to Prince. Prince is a associate men together because he has a story. They must ask him for money. Who is that man who tries to process? I am that. And when he brings men together to take mission, to take charge. So he's sampling a lot of men in his life that have a different things.
Mama who are listening, thank you for allowing us the opportunity, Doc, to come and share ulwazinyana esinalo. Njengoba sekashilo ke baba igama uPrince Ntsikelelo wakwaSoga. I am the founder of an organization called I Am That Man. Giyo leyo ndoda, kimunna yeu. The purpose of the organization is to create a platform for the holistic development of a man with a vision summarized kulamazwe ati restoring rebuilding the society by restoring men. So what do we mean then by saying restoring men? We want to say, as an organization, we want to contribute to the rebuilding of the society. How do we want to do it? By restoring men to their original position. I think that is where then a topic here today becomes relevant. To say, what is this original position of a man? So walking around or traveling around the country, even outside of South Africa, as an organization hosting events called Indaba Yamadoda, where men sit down to discuss issues. We find men maintaining the notion of saying Gindo Gintogo Yekaya. Man is the head of the family. So most of them, they would come from a Christian background, saying Bible, it is a biblical or a God-ordained position for a man. Abanye bazoqhamuka bathi culturally vele kwakudala indoda ibizalwa iyinhloko yomuzi. What then does it mean? It means indoda is a provider. So indoda must provide. But now listening to Amadoda discussing indaba yokuthi, okay, if ke ngiyahluleka as indoda to provide or angkhoni ukuprovide, does that then says angiseseyona na head of the family? And in one of our discussion, one said being a provider does not necessarily mean uwe onemali eningi in the house. It simply means it's a level of maturity for indoda to say, if ngine 20 rand epokothweni lami, who comes first? If ngine 100 rand epokothweni lami, whose needs do I prioritize? So as an organization, then we say, let us create that platform here where we will gather and say to men, let us look at this, let us develop each other, let us assist one another to maintain that position, to say, if unemali awuyidli etshwaleni, ubuya naye ekhaya. Bese ke umama nabantwana bathi ubaba uyasinakekela or uyasisiza. Number two, a man is a protector. Kuyatholakala ke ukuthi indoda iwumvikeli, looking at how men are structured. And naturally, indoda ibukeka inama-muscles, indoda ibukeka is-strong nyana. If, for instance, bekungathiwa kuyalwiwa, uma ushaya umama ngempama, it is kuvele kusheshe kubonakale esikhunjeni sakhe ukuthi ushayiwe. Uyabona? But indoda inala resistance nyana ebakhona. So from that point of view, bese kuyavela ke ukuthi no, indoda should be a provider, no a protector. Fanele kube nguye olala ekugcineni ekhaya. Sebalile bonke to ensure ukuthi bonke abantwana ba safe, unkosikazi safe. So the notion of headship does not necessarily mean one is preferred over the other. Does not mean one has an authority over omunye. Does not mean omunye unamandla ukudlula omunye. It is a position of responsibility. In our circle as I am that man, we have realized or discovered ukuthi being a head is a position of responsibility. So somebody to say responsibility is the ability to respond. So a head, it's somebody oti, I have the ability to respond to whatever challenge, to whatever circumstance ebakhona. One of the colleagues who presented before, uye wakhuluma indaba yokuthi indoda siyibona uma yenza izinto, uma reacta to situations and circumstances, bese sithi uyindoda. Uyabona, kanti if ufuna ukuhlala awumfana, i-choice yakhe. Uyabona, ngicela nje ukuvala ngestory engasifunda ngo-1997 with textbook yethu uMaru. This Margaret Cadmore Senior adopts a bush girl. Umbiza uMargaret Cadmore Jr. Umthatha umfaka esikolweni, mabamquestiona because now this girl begins to excel. Mabamquestiona uthi heredity is nothing, environment is everything. Margaret Cadmore, what do you mean? How you are born is not important, but the environment that is created makes you. So it then goes back to an issue of how we are socialized. Yabon, bese izala an abuse of the power or the position that one has.
We will be coming to you. And I like where you are going, and I like that story. It is not how you are born, it is the environment finally that dictates or has a and it's true. Even in medicine, heredity has to do with multifactorial. One other factor is an environmental factor. We'll be coming and asking, certain questions. We still have a lot of questions, and I hear already in the chat room here there is a fire that is that this topic is catching. But they said that a man is a head, is a provider, is something that you don't have a choice about. It's something that you're born under. It's what we are taught as we bring up. The professor even went to an extent of an initiation school about that. Manje, I want to ask you, as a pastor, as somebody who is in this field, who has studied in this field, first question, where does this come from? That men are supposed to be leaders, and what does it mean? And then while you are answering that, I also want you to talk about a man being a provider. Is it there in the Bible or what? You introduce yourself, you answer those two questions, see the level, because what you look and this thing is patriarchal, Over to you.
Thank you very much, Fundisi and Dr. Kekane, Abakhulumi that have spoken before me, Professor Inkosi Mahlangu, no Pastor Prince, nabalaleli bonke. My name is Dr. Stanley Maposa. I'm not a medical doctor, but I'm a social scientist, and my training is on youth participation, with a focus again on women empowerment and children's rights issues. Ngisebenza ku NGO. I'm an executive, but I'm also an author of books. One of my books talks about gender issues in the church and how we should break that silence. I'm a gospel singer as well. I am a leader of an organization called All Believers in Christ, ABC. I'm the president. Okay, let's leave that introduction alone. I will attempt to answer your questions, Dr. Kekana. A position that you have put me is tight because Christianity has so many faces. You know, there are so many denominations, so many persuasions, so interpretations, and I will go with my own interpretation because there are various interpretations. Where this thing comes from, it comes from the misinterpretation of scriptures and the failure to understand what I call the original plan kaNkulunkulu. And the original plan kaNkulunkulu is Genesis chapter 1 and 2, where God put his master plan there. If you then go to chapter 3, you'll find a mistake which happens when people then fell from the grace through what is called the fall. And then all these things started. I believe that's where religion started. People were trying to go back to God, and they were trying various means to go back to God. And I believe that's where culture started. People started to grapple in darkness looking for God, and they put a lot of things together. And in that chapter 3, God pronounced a judgment. And that judgment is what people are holding on to say the judgment is the plan of God. And for me, each judgment is not the plan of God, because in the beginning, God created men and women, male and female, and the Bible says that two of them were both blessed, number one. Number two, they were both given a mandate to look after the garden. It was never said, Adam, look after the garden alone. They were all told to multiply, to replenish. I've never seen a man multiplying alone, and I've also never seen a woman multiplying alone. They were also given a mandate to dominate all other creatures. By the way, they were never given a mandate to dominate over each other. There's nothing in those two chapters which gave men authority to dominate over a woman. They were told to dominate over his wungu, his nanakazana, birds, and all other things except themselves. And for me, my reading clearly shows that it doesn't originate from God. It originates from people. And yes.
Wait. No. I want you to continue. You started by saying misinterpretation, and now you started by saying people are now choosing this this notion of subjugating to one another, and this is what the banner on the screen is saying, right? So, Manje, are you saying that as Christians we are choosing to adopt something that is not in the Bible because it benefits us?
It is there in the Bible, but we need to understand that it is there on what context. When we're reading the Bible, it is critical for us to also understand context, to understand why this was written, and the audience, geographical context, time context, and all these contexts, which people don't take time to do. They just find a verse and they run. And as a result, you'll find that there are a lot of people, whether they are Christians or not, who are running using one verse. And they fish the verse out of the Bible like a fish, and they run with it. So it will be critical then to do some bit of reading the verses before and the verses after. And for me, the issue of the provider and the protector, in the beginning, it was not given, but as a punishment, it came not as a command, but as a punishment. It was not a command, it was a punishment. Umama uzokhulelwa and give birth with labor pain. It was also a punishment. And that the woman will, her desire will be on the man. All those things were a punishment. So we cannot then hold God at ransom from a punishment point of view rather than from a command and from a plan point of view. Because when you then read and go to the New Testament, you find that people were looking for direction until Jesus came. And everyone that calls themselves a Christian must look at how Jesus dealt with women, how he addressed all those things of a provider, leader, protector, headship of a man, and he turned things around, especially when he was glorified. I know people will say before he was glorified, he had 12 men. He had 12 men that were disciples. It was before his glorification. And he was changing the system bit by bit because he didn't want to bring radical economic transformation. He wanted to bring transformation slowly by slowly through the grace chapter which he had brought, which was dealing with the law. Maybe I can stop there for now. So to say, I don't see a verse, Babu Mfundisi, Dokotela, that says a man is a provider. I believe both men and women can provide. And Uchilo Omunyo speak lapha, we need humility and we need also understanding. Which if my wife has more money, then I should be humble enough to say, okay, here to Sonke. And also the issue of man and boy, maybe we'll come back to it, because when we say head of the household, it's a mistake. Actually, the Bible says head of the wife. So if you are a boy and you have no wife and you are not married, you are a head of nothing.
I want to go back to the chief. The chief, as you know, or as you have heard, Umaposa says from the Bible perspective, and I'm hearing myself, from the Bible perspective, there is no place where the man is a provider. And I know myself as well that when I was taught Genesis, that they say subdue the earth, not one another. And then the punishment came and the punishment finished. People ran with the punishment. And now, now the issue, I want us to realize that the different people from Christian side to traditionally, people practice what they prefer. Princess, it is not about inheritance. It's about the environment you are raised in. Now, the question that I'm going to ask you, because we already answered this one that we are dealing with now, is that what we were taught, or the fact of this obvious thing, the way that I'm looking for it, it's this thing that you just inherit, you know, that you become a man and you are meant to be a leader. Is it sustainable looking at what is happening today and what we were taught then? First question, have we deviated or we upheld what we were taught in trying or in being leaders? Secondly, if we were not now winning, why are we still pushing it? Over to you, Sir.
Okay, then the last question is then why are we pushing what?
If we are not winning, why are we pushing the notion that we're supposed to be leaders? Isn't it? We are given that and we are carrying on. And even when we fail, we still want to be called leaders, or we still look at as providers. So if it works, are you believing it works today? Or if we have deviated from what we're taught, it's now yielding bad things, why are we still persisting?
Okay. In our nature, we err in our nature as human beings. That's why we've got programs that keep on reviving us as people. That's why we have our moral regeneration, where we regenerate the morals of human beings. Because as much as people are expected to be morally okay as men, as much as they are expected not to hurt women and hit women and abuse women. But as much as women are expected to respect men, as much as women are supposed to bahlonipha abobaba and honor them and do things for them. But then we've got programs that are there that are meant to revive women. That's why when a woman and a man get married, a woman gets to be sit down, bamiyale, and get informed, bam revive. As much as is in their nature as women, ukuthi they are supposed to do this for men, but bayabayala ukuthi mawufika lapha emshadweni, this is how you must behave lapha emshadweni, indoda le mdele uyiphathe njani lapha emshadweni. And therefore we can't say now when we cannot do something, men are not capable of doing something, then we say we must move along, because now times are changing. So people are not having capacity to do some of the things because time are changing. So as much as women can be expected to be cleaning and cooking, you find that a woman is a professional and the job is demanding and she's supposed to come back very late. And the man is supposed to now assist in cleaning the house, collecting the kids from crèche and school, and assisting in those things. But then it does not mean that then we subtract the fact that the woman has her duties in the house. So now, as much as a man is supposed to be the provider in the house, it does, and unfortunately he is unemployed, and the woman and now the woman is the one that is providing. It does not mean then that you remove the hate that this man is the provider of the house. It means now that the expenditures of this house must be run even through him as the man. As the provider, that position should not change because of temporary situations. Those things are standard when you come into marriage and into a nature of being a man and a woman. You can't change things just because at that time you are unable to do those things. And also then I will not comment a lot biblically, because issues of the Bible are interpreted differently. One verse that has got 10 words can have 10 pastors interpreting it totally differently from each other, from the one with theology degrees, from the one that says theology does not help, you must be a natural pastor, you must be born with a calling, you can't go to university. Why otherwise today have invigilators at university if pastors that are writing exams, because this thing is a godly thing. Now, the things of the Bible, I'm not talking about those things. You see, now I'm already going that other way. What I'm talking about now is nature. I'm talking about when you are born, this is how things are designed. But then due to the changing of lives, we see sometimes as a man, you are supposed to go wake up and do a certain thing, but the weather does not allow it. So because you didn't go out that day to do something, it doesn't mean that you are no longer a man. It means that because of that situation and atmosphere outside, you can't do it for now. But the cap becomes the one of the men. You see, there's no greater feeling than a man being able to provide for his family. There is no greater feeling for a man than being able to provide for his family. that comes naturally. And there is no greater feeling for a woman being taken care of by a man, being surprised, being given attention, affection, being taken out, being spoiled. That's one of the greatest feelings women can have. And there's no greater embarrassment for a man to always sit at home like this and say, okay, my wife, you are working, me, I'm not working because of disability. Therefore, you are the head. I'm going to become the wife. It can't work. It's natural. We can't change nature because of temporal situations. I put it to you.
He's hard at it. I like it like that. It's brewing. Baba Prince, I don't want to say anything, because me and since Uma Posa said it's not found in the Bible. From here, I'm not a provider anymore because you never found it in the Bible. So both of us can then carry the weight. Chief comes back and say, no, the fact that you temporarily cannot do it, we cannot write you off that. You are the provider, you are the head. There is no great feeling. Because I thought, hey, I didn't find it. I paged and I paged and I paged my Bible. Subtract my paper because I'm looking for a university as a provider. And I'm a provider. Prince, before we go my post, I want to ask you this. Now, I was with you the other time when a certain man said to us, we were put first in the garden and God talked to us, not women, and I don't want to hear anything. I have to be there as a man, you know. And this guy was hard on the issues and not wanting to let go. What are the issues with now? The question I'm going to ask you is that there's issues that sometimes as men don't have jobs. The chief, who's also a lawyer, says it's a temporary situation where a man can still provide. And the fact that a man doesn't have a job, or the fact that the man doesn't have certain things, it doesn't remove him from being a man. So what are the issues with this? What are the issues you are having with what he just said? In the field of your expertise.
Okay. It's one of the things as in our discussions. It's the issue that of the things that are happening in our country right now. An issue of saying the government, the private sector, and everybody is putting efforts together to assist women and children who are victims in the hands of men. Number two, they are doing this to close or redress the imbalances of the past. What has been happening in the past, men have been put first, and now men are saying the very government, the very efforts that they are not putting to men. They are not aware that they are creating the very same balance, the very same imbalance by developing women, leaving men behind. That is number one. Number two, if women are developed to a certain level, who is preparing these boys for these women that are being developed every day, that are being groomed every day? So that is the biggest challenge that is faced. That is the biggest challenge that is faced by people, by men in the society. So we want to say as I'm disturbed. I'm sorry. These are challenges. These are issues that men are raising to say we are emasculated. Our glory is being removed. The very glory that the chief was talking about, the glory of providing, being able for providing, it's been taken away. So in a nutshell, those are the issues that men are facing.
Okay, you see, you know, it's getting thicker and thicker, and Now, the issue is this, and I want Maposa to now address this. The issues of the headship and what is happening today in terms of when we look at the headship.
Yes.
And the changes that we have is the fact of, well, this issue of men being the leaders. Is it sustainable? Is it something that we're going to be able to sustain? You know, because now there the chief says we are men. It doesn't have to change. The fact that we cannot provide, you are called a provider. Even if you cannot provide, it's temporary. So the woman must help to carry on. But it is nicer for the man to celebrate providing for his family, providing for the women and surprising them financially. I feel it's a pressure that is, you know, it goes a long way that it might result in other issues. I'm going to wait for them to come back in the studio. But for you, do you think we are winning with this thing of patriarchal? It's a patriarchal system. Are we really winning, or we are causing problems for ourselves? And now I like the fact that you didn't find it in the Bible. You know that the punishment. But by the way, Ufina said, in the punishment, they didn't say, I'm going to sweat to provide for a woman. They said, for the bread that I will eat, I'm going to sweat. Let me go a step further. When Adam and Eve, before they could eat, they would just walk outside and eat what God has provided. The table was set for them before they were created.
Yes.
Now, all they needed to do was to go and eat. Now that they failed in that system, the punishment came in. Now, for them to eat, they must sweat. And then the woman also given a pay. Does the fact that Adam will sweat before they eat, does it mean, you agree with me or you disagree, does it mean that Adam must sweat for the woman before they can eat, or it means every man for himself? Over to you.
No, this is exciting, Dr. Kekane. Maybe before I come to your question, let me just address one or two things. Unkosi Mahlangu talked about culture, and I indicated which I know where culture started. Culture started when men lost God, and they started to imizamo, and they were trying and trial and error to find God and to live among themselves, and also to work according to the punishment they were given. And secondly, culture is not static. It is dynamic. It keeps changing. And that answers your question, Yoguti. We cannot be holding on to a culture of 1960 when we are in 2022. If my mother wasn't working and seated at home and cooking for my father every day, my wife can't do that, because all of us who are professionals, we wake up in the morning, we go and find work and bring bread into the house. So culture is dynamic. It will continue to change according to the time. I'll also answer a little bit, Pastor Prince, about developing men versus women, and also emasculating men and women. I think there's something that is called the equity. This situation that we are in is the same as the BEE one, that some other race was enjoying before apartheid. And now when we say we are lifting the other race, it is like we're just putting a chair so that these ones that are short can also stand on it in order to see. So if that imbalance gets to be created, we will do another equity, and we will cross the bridge when we get to it. Let me come to your question. In the Bible, the word head is there. It is written, especially by Paul. And when he writes it in the book of First Timothy chapter 2, verse 12, he talks about headship, and also in Ephesians 5, verse 21 to 23, he talks about headship. But as I said earlier, he clearly says the head of your wife, not every woman. And
Yeah.
secondly, we must also understand that marriage is not a contract, but it is a covenant between two people. And whatever they discuss and agree in their home may not have me in there telling them what to do. And therefore, culture must stop telling a husband and wife what to do, including church must stop telling a husband and a wife what to do, because in their covenant between the two of them, they agree on certain things, and therefore they should not be forced to do certain things that are outside the covenant that they have agreed themselves. So there's nothing like a man being the head of the church. There's also nothing about a man being the head of the household, including children. It talked about the wife only. And it also didn't say also headship is equal to leadership. It didn't say that. And there is a verse where Paul compares in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 3, where he compares the man's headship of the wife with the headship of Christ. And that's where, as a church, we should be looking at that. And for me, it talks about the man being the source, just like Christ is the source of life and death, helping the wife to flourish, and giving yourself up to her, and providing growth and growing that relationship in love. And there's another verse that people don't quote, Ephesians chapter 5 verse 21. They quote verse 22 a lot because it talks about male and female submitting mutually to one another. In other words, as much as the wife should submit, the husband also should submit. And there's something called mutual submission.
Yes. You see, I want to continue. Prince said he's in transit, so we'll catch him up as he's about to get home. Now, the issues about misinterpretation is the fact that I like that in Ephesians, people don't quote a lot about submitting to one another. They only quote about a woman submitting to a man.
Yes. Just
as they read verse 22, ask them to study in 21.
21 should be read.
If they want, they can start in 18 and come down with it and read slow. Every verse they must drink some water or take sugar to understand it if there's issues. Then you will realize that there's certain things that shouldn't be done. I want us to start looking at the questions that are there and have them being answered. Chief is lost in the connection, so I'll see if it's when I come back to this call. But there's few questions that I want us to look at and comments that I want us to entertain. You know, Ufin has been blasted on the side. We know this topic is close to her heart. It's one of the stuff that she does, and we want to say this. Let's read. He says, you know, what the prof and the chief unpack is patriarchal system, but we have matriarchy as a society system in which the mother or a female elder has absolute authority over the family group. By extension, one or more women, as in a council, exert a similar level of authority over the community as a whole. But this system is not promoted more than patriarchy is. Yes. And you are so right. You are so right, and it should be promoted. And I'm going to tell you when this is promoted is when it suits men. Chief said, and I wanted to challenge him on this. He said, even when you're getting married by a wala, meaning they tell you what not to do and what to do. He calls it, in his own word, a system to refocus something that is lost in translation. So we are now not looking at the system to move away from patriarchy. We get a system to put people back into patriarchy, which I don't support, by the way. So what do we get re kra bo rakgadi bo rakgadi ba le ba ditjalenyana ba le ba ditjalenyana ba I'm gonna stop it there. Ba ditjalenyana to come and tell somebody what not to do and what to do, what time to wake up and everything and stuff. And it is only in that system or only in that act that they use this Borakhadi to be the ones that pushes something that promotes them. And I wanted them to answer for themselves, and I hope he can get back. And I agree with you. They don't promote that system. And by the way, when you are working as a man away, the woman becomes the one that raises the child. But then we come back and say, you are supposed to be the head, or you are a leader. But kanjani, why when you come back, the house is in order and you were gone? I'm just asking that question. But it doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense.
Definitely, Muruti. I think, as I said, that if a couple must discuss issues and agree. And when they agree to say, let us work in this home according to our gifts. If I am gifted in cooking and I cook good meals, I will go to that kitchen right now and cook. If my wife loves gardening and does it well, she'll go to that garden and do the garden. And it's our agreement here. And if I come from work early, as of me, for example, in my family, I knock off early, around 4 o'clock, I'm done, or I have a flexible job. I start cooking there. And there is no way I saw in the Bible that says cooking is for women and men should sit and watch the television. I mean, those are things that society agreed to do as a result of the fall, and when culture came in and religion came in, and those things can change. They can change because culture is not static, it is dynamic. And when we read afresh the Bible and say, what is the original plan? In the beginning, what was the original plan of God? And we look for it, and we say Paul is a good guy. I love him. I love his verses, but he was addressing people that were fallen, and he was addressing a particular context in which he found himself. He was not, I read the scriptures and they are biblical, they are the word of God, but I am just learning what he says, and I'm not saying all the things that he said, they were relevant to this particular point in time, because it was a particular culture and a context that he was in.
That's true. And what I love about Paul was that he knew when to quote himself and when to quote God. But
Exactly.
I said I'm not going to wear that.
This is now me. Yeah, this is now me writing. It's not God.
He keeps on saying that it is me, not God. But I want us to go on with other comments.
Yes.
Ufin again comes and says, this notion of a provider, protector, puts so much pressure on men because most of them don't have capacity, the resources to do so, and their responses in such is physical because they are not allowed to meet the expectation of providing and protecting. Yes, it is so much pressure. I feel it's so much pressure. If I can feel the pressure, what about other people? It's so much pressure that you are now told that you are the provider. Let me tell you what we used to do at home is that each time we want something and we couldn't have it and we ask the parent, we'll kneel together with my parents to ask God to become the provider.
Yes.
And I've learned a lot from there that my parents are not able to do everything. And when both of them are not able to do something, they ask God. At some point, it was my mother only waking and my father was not waking. And things continued in the same manner. If it was only my father was expected to provide, even when the times when he was not waking, it could have been more issues. It's a pressure that we don't need. We need to allow ourselves and actually be realistic. This patriarchal system it also causes problems to us.
Yes, yes. No. I agree with you 100% because you know, the provider protector issue is putting pressure on men, and as I said earlier, sweating that was in Genesis 3 was not a role. It was not a role for men. It was a result of the fall. It was a punishment, which says now that you have disobeyed, and this is what is going to happen as you survive outside Eden. And bearing children also was not a role. It was also a result of a fallen world having difficult childbirth. And therefore, we cannot be celebrating those things. We need to be saying, okay, as a family, let us be humble to one another to say, this is the situation. My wife is working, I'm not working, and I can do other things while she's at work. I can wash plates, I can do everything while she's at work. And as the pastor said, it's a temporary measure. Once I get a job, I'll go back to work. And if I don't get it, it remains like that. It's okay. And it's also okay. If it's okay for a woman, I'm saying it's okay for a man.
Yes. You see, the other more comments that I want to read that Rufina said is, it was really blustering, but I like it. It says, culture is a way of being. It means we determine based on choices we make. What we push is our way of being. So most communities choose patriarchy as a way of being. And that's what is then passed on from generation to generation. Exactly that. Again, she said, even in the punishment, it didn't say a man will work for his family, but in the sweat of his face, he will eat the bread. Hey, are you saying I can eat the bread alone? Anyway, you are right. You see, you are right. It says, you shall eat the bread as you sweat. It didn't say, that's why I saw one of the posts 2 weeks ago and the person blocked me. The person is my friend. I don't even know that person. I see the post says, yeah, a man is a provider, a man is a protector, and that's what I want. I don't want anything else. And I asked, but are you quoting that from what? And he says, don't you read the Bible? Obviously, he's not my friend because he doesn't know, he doesn't know me well as a friend. He's just a friend on the social media. He says, don't you read the Bible? And I read the Bible every day, ladies and gentlemen. I love it. And then I said, but if the Bible doesn't say that, and the person blocked me, because people are, these are choices that the cultures are making, and they're pushing it from generation to generation. The typical example is a lobola. Lobola started as a token of appreciation. It moved from a token of appreciation to people making demands, and if you can't meet those demands, now you are called a less of a man. And guess what? Who's making those demands? It's another man on another man. It's another patriarchal system pressing on another man. It's a patriarchal system. In a way that this thing causes so much pain that I'm asking God every day to allow my family to support me when I say I don't want lobola for my girls. Because I need food for this. For that reason, I need food. For those that know that their kids wouldn't mind to marry somebody without paying a lobola, my daughters, when they are ready in their old age or whatever, I won't be asking for any lobola because of that. So, but I want us to go on. It says, July, well spoken, Dr. Maposa. My question to Ikosi, why do we have so much battles for ascending the throne when it favors women? And what do you think should be done to accept women as capable leaders, as chiefs? I wish he was here to answer that. Because for me, even in the journey I've traveled of being ordained as a pastor, I've learned a lot from women ministers. And at some point, I said that with the calling of God, I also trust women the same way that I trust men with a calling. It's
Definitely.
clear.
Let me come in there a little bit, Morut.
Yes.
That the myth, it's a myth that says leadership is for men and church leadership is for men. Because when you read the Bible, it says he gave some to be apostles, he gave some, it's Ephesians chapter 4, to be a prophet. There is no maleness there. He just gave some. When he ascended to heaven, he dropped gifts, he gave some according to his choice. And the some there is not male. Is everyone that he saw fit. And also in terms of leadership is not male. Leadership is ability. Leadership is anointing. In some cases, leadership is training, is experience. And all of us can do that. And we have already indicated that there are chiefs that are female. And in the Bible, we've got a lot of leaders that were female. And somebody would put in a lot of other arguments here and there, but they were there, and some of them were even much more better than men.
Yeah, that's true. Some of them are. I didn't want to say that point, but I didn't want to get there, but I believe you. For me, in a spiritual journey, I trust a woman with a spiritual calling than a man. You'll find out when your hair turns gray. If you haven't found out now, you will find out why I trust a woman with a spiritual calling than a man. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. You will find out when your hair is gray if you haven't. Now he says that what happens, which is now this what he says. What happens if we change the culture and put the same expectation in men that we put in women? Why is there resistance or fear of this change? You want to answer that?
Yes, I will try. I think the answer has already been provided. It is patriarchy. It is a system, and because other people are benefiting from the system, therefore they are resisting to change the status quo. And they are pushing it from one generation to another. And the most painful thing is that there are women that are part of the system and they are pushing it. For example, if a woman has been married and had troubles in her marriage, you will hear that when she trains her children, when they are going to be married, that they are saying, okay, even if you have challenges, sit there. And some of the songs that we sing, Makoti Ngowami, Ngowetu, Uzaspekela Sitini, all those are songs that are composed, some of them by women, to oppress other women, because when they get older, they start to benefit from some of the younger women that are Makotis. It's like being a Makotis, being a slave of the mother-in-law, of the husband, of the aunties, the sisters to the husband, and everybody in the family. They have found a slave that they are going to be using.
Yeah, but you see, for me, and I wish Prof was still around. He had to go somewhere because he didn't plan his day like that. So he was, one of the questions that I would have asked Prof is that, because he started by opening and saying, and I quote him, the difference between a man and a woman is that the other one has a womb and the other one does not have a womb. And he continued by saying that this thing of a leadership, you are born as it is, and that what is given, you don't have a choice, you are the provider of the family, and start going on a patriarchal system. But how do you then see yourself as a leader of something that you don't have? Isn't it if she has a womb and she has certain characteristics, she should be dominant in that field? And you cannot be dominant in that field for something that you don't have. All I'm saying is that we should be able to value one another with what we bring, not oppress one another with what we bring. If you bring certain things that I don't have, that are not in the table, we must be saying that we are honoring that and we are respecting you for that, than saying that I don't have a womb, you have a womb, but I shall be your chief. How do you supervise
No,
a
no.
job you are not into? Because for you to be the leader of that, you need to have a greater sort of a dominance. But you can't dominate something that you don't have, which is the reason why we don't want to allow the same pressure to be put on women, the same pressure that we are putting on women to be put on us. Because we know we are not going to win.
Definitely. You know, Muruti, the Bible talks about the Adam and Eve in the beginning, and some people would argue to say Adam came first, what, and that's a discussion for another day. And even if I take that argument, it doesn't necessarily mean to say the one who came first is superior. In a work environment, it doesn't mean to say those that were employed first are superior than the ones that come later in the job. And secondly, the physical appearances of men and women is God's art and God's creativity, which we must celebrate and not use then to abash one another and abuse one another and downlook one another. It is God's art that He has given us so that we can complement and work together, male and female, beautifully created as we are in our difference. And I don't know, maybe there are scientists that are here to say how much percentage of physical difference are we talking about here? Is it material? The difference physically between a man and a woman, is it really 50%? Is it 95%? So that we can really then say somebody has a womb and somebody doesn't have a womb. Is it such a big difference that can really cause us to be creating this hula baloo?
Yes, you see, I can tell you one thing. It is not
Maybe
about
a medical doctor. You can tell us what is the percentage difference.
I'll tell you. You see, from the books that I read, it does not tell me that a man is born strong. It actually says at some point the women are the ones who are born strong. The difference, which what Prince was saying in his coming back, is in transit now. He said it's not much of inheritance, but the surrounding and the environment. So what then happens is that men get involved in a risky activities, dangerous activities, taking a lot of chances, and that courage was then translated into them being stronger. Because now the man says, oh, okay, for me to look strong, I have to pick up this rock, I have to pick up this weight. And then even if there's many injuries at gym, you don't hear about them, you hear about the results only. But if you start saying, wait, how many women got injured at gym trying to pick up a lot of weight? Or how many women had a car accident trying to speed compared to men? You will realize that most people are dying in those risk activities. But people don't put it ahead. It's those activities that makes men assume that they're strong. But empeleng, I don't see it that way. I really don't see it that way. And I don't want you to find out as a man who is strong. I just want you to live in peace and not test it. You know what I mean? But I don't want, there's nothing that says a man is born strong. No, it's actually contrary if you read your books. It's contrary how people are born. But I want us to go on so that we can save time and read all this. There are a lot of comments. You know, I don't even now. I'm gonna start picking few that are not alluded to. Let's hear what Monica is saying. Uti, because men are like being in power, and most of them will have a problem being led by women, even if a woman is a better leader compared to them. Yes, exactly that. They will refuse to be led by a leader, just by a woman, just because it was dictated that you are the leader. And again, if we go back to what Chief himself said, I believe that in a family where there are girls only, God still calls other people among those ladies to become leaders, if not all of them.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that the leadership is only found, or a good leadership is only found in men. There are women who can lead better than men, and I've already told you about the other one that I said that you will find out why I'm saying that. So God does not only choose that it's only men who lead. Women can lead, and some of them can lead much more better than men with wisdom. So now,
definitely. Maybe from a Christian point of view, I would say in Romans chapter 16, verse 7, who was Junior? Junior was an apostle, and this apostle is not talked about a lot, but she was an apostle, and as you have indicated that it's not about male or female. Leadership is a gift. Leadership is a calling. Leadership is an anointing that somebody gets. And we can speak the whole day about leaders that are women here in the scriptures and in the Bible. And God, Jesus even demonstrated while he was living here on earth. As I said, our final authority as Christian is Jesus. How he elevated that woman of Samaria to be the evangelist of the whole town. And actually, when he went to that well, he was looking for that woman. Samaria was saved through that woman, and he went for that woman. He says to the disciples, go and buy bread. How can 12 people go and buy a piece of bread? And when they brought the bread, he didn't even eat it, because he wanted to talk to that woman who became an evangelist of a city on her own.
You see, I want us to wrap up this. This topic is overwhelming, and I want us to bring part 2 of this. And the reason I want to leave it here and bring part 2 of this, I want to have women panelists as well with me, for them to challenge this. And I want heart-focused men who are now focused on patriarchy. And I think I know where I'm going to go and ask for time prior, so that then we have women challenging and expressing themselves. How does this make them feel? Yes. Today we're trying to find out where many things are coming from, and all these questions that are asked and all these comments are going to be asked to those who are pushing this, that the patriarchal system is the way to go. So next week, join us again on part 2 of this. We are bringing women and we are bringing men under the same umbrella, to then discuss these issues. Why are they pushing? Because for me, as I wrap it up, is that certain things don't work anymore, and we must accept that they don't work anymore.
Yes.
And change them for the better. But again, if between the two of you agreeing that she will submit to you, and when you talk, she's not going to say anything, remember, it is only her who agreed. Not all these women on the street, in the mall, that when they, or in the boardroom, that when they talk to you, you tell them, I'm talking. It's not them who agreed to submission. It is your woman that you got married to. If you are now a provider of your family, be careful. You might not be a provider of the community.
Yes.
Last thing I don't like is that the fact that when they said, and Prof said that men are not supposed to cry, meant that men are not supposed to cry in public. That is also wrong. Because if you don't cry in public, the ones that are hating you in public, they might not see you in private. So therefore, they will not know that they are hating you. They will continue to hate you, and you will continue taking this in private where they are not going to see you. The next thing we'll hear that some things happened in private that sees the light because of your anger. So as a man, if you want to cry, whether it's in public, please cry. I won't judge you. Mina, if you are crying as a man, I will wait there with my handkerchief to give you and say, well done, you have done it, you have cried, what is wrong, let's help you. I won't see the weakness in you and take out a phone and start shooting you, because it is difficult. The pressures you're giving to these men in a patriarchal system, as us men, it's really terrible. So I want you to give us your last parting shot, and then we'll meet again. So that we said an hour 33 minutes now.
Thank you so much. I think I would like to say thank you so much to you, Dr. Kekana, and your team in His grace and mercy in this discussion. And I would like to participate and listen, not to talk, listen to women next week, and invite others to come through, so that together we can learn. In my language, they say, so the more we talk, we will make things right. And my final word is that men being heads is a myth, and it's a misinterpretation of scriptures. Thank you.
Thank you very much. He answered that question that has been there all along. It's a myth. I feel the same thing. It's not a fact. It's not a fact. It's not a fact. This thing is not a fact, and I think we have unpacked it from the beginning of the Bible to the last. But I would reserve some of my comments to hear the ladies next week when they now say because really we have to come to a point where we talk about this, we enlighten each other on this, so that we can produce the better. We cannot multiply an error and pass it from generation to generation. So let me do this so that we can finish this and wrap it up. And thank you to the MK team. Thank you very much. I've got a wonderful team, ladies and gentlemen, that put this thing together. Even in the last minute when we had issues, they came together to find solutions for us. And I'm really, really grateful for the team that we have. I've got MK team that is moving this. I can be the face, but I'm not the power that is working within this. There are also women who are doing so much work out in this ministry. And then we also thank them. From myself and the MK team, let me bid you goodbye in an MK team style. I haven't done this in a long time, when I missed it. Check it out. I am Dr. Kekana, I'm Pastor Kekana. For myself and the team, we love you, we thank you, we bless you, and we'll see you again. Enjoy your evening, you and your